Today we're doing two NBA player props here for Tuesday, April 23rd. Before we get started, you guys, link in the description below. You can hop into our premium Discord. $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. It's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We have some other premium cappers in there as well. They post all their plays, research, and analysis. Super positive community in there. Again, everyone's trying to help each other cash. Again, I'm also not a gambling expert, and this is not financial advice. This is simply just the plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully, give you guys some insight and analysis to make your own player prop decisions. But let's get into it. 1-1 last night again. Paolo came through on his 18.5 field goal attempts, and then Austin Reeves and my Lakers. Just as a Laker fan, that was probably one of the most disappointing losses I've ever seen in my life as a Laker fan. And I mean, second half, in my opinion, just the LeBron show. And again, I don't blame LeBron; he played really well, but a lot of Austin Reeves just standing and watching just really didn't get the usage that I was expecting. But nonetheless, 1-1, we are now, I think, 6-2 over our last 8 plays. So again, hopefully we can get a 2-0 night tonight. Two player props that I do like from this slate. We got Phoenix, Minnesota, Indiana, Milwaukee, Dallas, Clippers. Should be some good ones. I mean, 3-point spread, 1-point spread, 2.5-point spread. So let's get into it. Two player props that I do like. Both these plays can be fantasy score lines. Again, fantasy score lines is just my favorite category to attack here in these playoffs, just with these stud guys getting a ton of usage. So let's get into it. The first play is going to be Anthony Edwards over 42.5 fantasy. We look at this matchup, like I said, 3-point spread. This is a home game for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And, I mean, even the last game, right, I think it ended up being a blowout. Pretty much a blowout, right? I mean, we saw Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, Anthony Edwards played 36, but Towns, Gobert. Actually, I guess they played a good amount of minutes, but nonetheless, 36 minutes in what I would consider to be a blowout, right? I know the game kind of got away from the Suns here, but we look at Anthony Edwards. Hold on, let me go back to this. We look at Anthony Edwards' game log this season when he plays 38 minutes, right? He played 36 minutes in a blowout. I'm expecting this game to be much, much closer with all these veteran guys that the Suns have. I'm expecting them to make adjustments. Obviously, Frank Vogel is a championship-level coach. So I'm expecting the Suns to make adjustments in this game to be a lot closer. And I think a more realistic floor for Anthony Edwards tonight is 38-plus minutes. Again, we could see him play north of 40 in a close game. But 42.5 is the line. We can see this hit rate this season when he does get 38-plus minutes, right? Obviously, it's Anthony Edwards. But I just really, really liked his usage and the way he played in that game against Phoenix in Game 1, right? So we take a look at this matchup in Game 1, how he played. He obviously saw insane usage, 37.1, which is without question the highest on the team. And he shot 14 for 24. Took 24 shots, 24 shots, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. I mean, even if you take a look at that, like, hold on, let me see if we do including playoffs real quick for you guys. In that game, like against Phoenix, I gotta filter this out to 36 real quick, guys. I appreciate the patience. We're not still gonna see it because he played 36 exactly, 35. Let's see if we get this here. Yeah, against Phoenix, he had 52.8 fantasy, 33, 9, 6, and 2. He also had 6 turnovers. So we're talking about that line in 36 minutes being closer to maybe he just cuts those turnovers down a little bit, closer to 55 fantasy points, which again, this line really doesn't make sense to me at 42.5. Just on the season, Anthony Edwards is a 1.19 fantasy points per minute player, but over his last 5 games, 1.3 fantasy points per minute, 1.16 fantasy points per minute. So you can do the math if he gets around 36, 37, 38 plus minutes tonight in this matchup. Again, over on Outlier, again, there's a link in the description below. You get a 7-day free trial. It's just a great way to research player props. It's a research betting tool that I do use every single day. You can see the hit rate, 24 of 31 games this season when he plays 37-plus minutes. Again, I think that's a little bit more of a safer floor here. And you can see this run that he had much earlier on in the season when he was seeing those kind of minutes. Again, it's just a player, Anthony Edwards, who I think is going to elevate his game in the playoffs, right? He's just the type of player that feeds off mentality, feeds off the opposing team. You could see the kind of banter he was having with Kevin Durant in that Game 1. This is probably most exciting series, in my opinion. Both these teams, I think, are super evenly matched as far as just offensive firepower. And again, the Suns cannot guard guards whatsoever. We've known that, high usage guards. We look at just recent guards. I mean, look at these dates. This is all in March and April. guards fantasy score game like this season versus the Suns with 36 plus minutes. I mean, we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different guards clear this line. I mean, we saw Emmanuel Quickly 59.8. I mean, we saw Bones Highland go for 60.3 fantasy. I mean, you can see the hit rate for some of these guards. We can debate Anthony Edwards, maybe besides Shea Gilgeous is the most talented offensive guard of any of these guys. And Brandon Boston at 40.4, obviously, in a game that didn't really matter. CJ McCollum 40.3. I mean, you can see the hit rate. So high usage guards have been really, really able to be super effective against the Suns. And I don't think that stops here with Anthony Edwards. 42.5. I mean, we were seeing this fantasy score line during the season at closer to 45, 44.5. So I like this spot a lot for Anthony Edwards. Again, 36 plus minutes, 37, 38 plus minutes. This should be super, super, I don't want to say free, but I really like the odds of this one going over. So that's the first play. The second play is going to be another fantasy score line. And I'm looking at Luka over 60.5. I feel like I got to go superstars here. Reeves yesterday, he just didn't get the usage, right? And it was frustrating to watch. And I definitely think this is a game where we see both these guys just get a ton of usage, right? Obviously, the Mavs trying to win this game, go back to Dallas up or tied to 1-1, and then Anthony Edwards trying to go to Phoenix up 2-0. So both these players, right? Obviously, you're going to see insane usage. But Luka, right? We talk about Luka. I can see him getting 37, probably 40 minutes tonight. He got 40 minutes, I think 41 minutes in game one, and didn't really play that great. And his supporting cast didn't really play that great besides, obviously, Kyrie. But, this season, when Luka plays 37 minutes, he's over this line in 27 of 39 games, which is a decent hit rate. Obviously, he had this run in the season where he was just going absolutely crazy. 27 to 39 games this season. When he gets 37 minutes, he's at the over on this line, right? Again, link in the description. You get a 7-day free trial with Outlier. But on the season, I mean, Luka, we're talking about 1.66 fantasy points per minute type of player. 1.61 fantasy points per minute player, you guys. Again, do the math. Luka, I mean, I'll just do the math on my phone for you guys real quick, right? So we see Luka, he gets 1.61 fantasy points per minute, right? Let's say he plays 40 minutes. That's 64.4 fantasy points. Just relatively, based on his fantasy points per minute average, right? But we look at Luka, like I said, this season when he plays 40 plus minutes, very strong hit rate. If we filter this to 40 plus over an Outlier, I mean, talking about 16 of 23 games, he's at the over on this line. And even just in the playoffs, right, in his career, when he plays 40 plus minutes, he's over this line in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not this one, but so it's going to be 7 of 10 games when he plays 40 plus minutes. And just look at that game log from game one, right? He plays 42 minutes, takes 26 shots, right? He only had 6 assists. And we see, like I said, his supporting cast: PJ Washington 4 for 10, Derrick Jones 0 for 4, Daniel Gafford 1 for 4, Kleber 1 for 5, Lively 1 for 3, Exum 1 for 4, Tim Hardaway 2 for 5. So he didn't get much from his supporting cast, so I'm expecting an uptick in those assists, obviously, for him. But 11 for 26, I think he can shoot the ball a little bit better as well. 4 turnovers. And I think in that one he finished with like 56. I think 56. Let me see what he finished with. I got 56 fantasy points in that one. 56.6, right? So we're talking about Luka, obviously, if we're talking about fantasy scoreline, the safest player you could bet on, in my opinion, when you're taking an over on a fantasy scoreline, regardless of matchup, regardless of game. I'm expecting this one to be a lot closer. And also, like, if you think about it, Luka finished with 56. In the second quarter, the Mavericks scored 8 points. They scored 8 points. I don't see that happening again. They only scored 97 points as a team, which the last 15 games of the season, they had the highest offensive rating in basketball. So I'm expecting a bounce back from them offensively. I mean, first half, they scored 30 points. I don't see that happening again. I think they get off to a much better start here. And I like Luka over 16.5 fantasy. So 2 player props for this game: Anthony Edwards over 42.5 fantasy, Luka over 16.5. If you don't have fantasy score lines where you are, I also like PRA for both these guys as well. You could play PRA 36.5 and then Luka 52.5 as well. I think are great PRA options wherever Luka is right here. So Luka 52.5 and Anthony Edwards over 36.5 if you don't have fantasy score lines. But 2 player props for this video. Links in the description below, you guys. Drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.